Hello everyone, and welcome to ALLCHOICE Legends and Tales. Today, we are going to introduce the origins, development, and eventual fate of the three most famous medieval knight orders. When we mention the three great knight orders, who hasn't heard of them? They are the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitaller, and the Teutonic Knights. These three knight orders were some of the most iconic products of the Crusades, and they also represent the medieval period. So how did these knight orders form? What exactly were their purposes? What are the differences between them, and how did they end? Let me help you answer these questions. The Crusades consisted of 9 expeditions, but only the first one was successful. After the victory, part of the Crusader force withdrew back to Western Europe, while another part stayed behind, establishing several Crusader states in the Middle East. The three great knight orders were born in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Among them, the Knights Templar had the most success. At their peak, they were an unbeatable force, owning over 1,000 churches and countless castles, and their wealth spread across Europe. It is said that their annual income reached £6 million. What is the significance of £6 million? At the time, the King of England's annual income from his own lands was only £30,000. No wonder later French King Philip IV wanted to wipe out the Knights Templar. Such a fortune would make anyone envious. However, such a massive organization started with just 9 knights, and at its largest, it never exceeded 500 knights. After the First Crusade won, the people in the West believed they were blessed by God and rushed to Jerusalem to go on pilgrimages. But only those who participated in the Crusades knew that this victory wasn't due to divine intervention. It came at the cost of countless dead bodies. And these pilgrims, naively thinking that since God helped the Crusaders win, the journey from the sea to Palestine and then to Jerusalem would be safe. In reality, the most dangerous part of the journey was the road from the Palestinian ports to Jerusalem. These pilgrims, carrying their possessions, were prime targets for Muslim bandits. At that time, Baldwin II had just been crowned King of Jerusalem, and he was troubled by the safety of pilgrims. Suddenly, 2 French knights approached him, offering to form a religious knight order with 7 other knights to guard this pilgrimage route. Though they were only 9 people, medieval knights always had followers, so each of the 9 knights had 5-foot soldiers and several horse attendants. Thus the 9 knights actually commanded around 90 people. By their peak, when there were 500 knights, the actual number would have been around 5,000. Baldwin II was thrilled with their offer and gave them the southeastern corner of Jerusalem, which was also the site of Solomon's Temple. This is where the name Knights Templar comes from. The Knights Templar's uniform was a white robe with a red cross. On the other hand, the Knights Hospitaller wore a red robe with a white cross. The Teutonic Knights had a white robe with a black cross. The Templars had a distinctive emblem of 2 knights riding the same horse, which became the basis for the accusation that they were engaging in homosexual practices when King Philip IV later sought to destroy them. After all, why would 2 people ride the same horse if not for that? This emblem became part of the allegations against them. Although these knight orders helped kings in battle, they did not serve any one monarch. Their loyalty was only to the Pope. Once you joined the Knights Templar, you would lose your surname and only have your first name. For example, if you were Richard Plantagenet, you would simply be Brother Richard. You were expected to dedicate everything to the order. The sole mission of the Knights Templar was to eliminate Muslims. In contrast, the Knights Hospitaller formed by Italians, had a primary mission to provide medical care. In fact, the Knights Hospitaller had been around for decades before the Crusades. They had already opened a clinic in Jerusalem to care for sick pilgrims. Later, when the Crusaders besieged a city, the Muslims threw stones down on them, and these knights suggested throwing down bread instead. The commander of the city, angered by their actions, wanted to execute them, but before the execution could take place, Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders, and they were saved. Influenced by the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitaller began to arm themselves and take up arms in addition to providing medical aid. The official name of the Knights Hospitaller is the Knights of St. John. John, and their nickname, the Hospitallers, came from their primary focus on health care. However, after they militarized, most of their members were French knights. The Teutonic Knights were formed by Germans during the Third Crusade. Their leader was displeased with Richard the Lionheart and left the Germans in Palestine before returning home. These Germans, led by knights, formed the Teutonic Order, which was named after the word Teutonic, meaning German. Ironically, although the Knights Templar vowed to live poor lives, they soon became wealthier than anyone else. Originally, knight orders had no salaries, but their expenses grew large, and they needed to cover these costs. As knights, they needed battle horses, high-quality ones, and several of them. They also needed heavy armor, swords, lances, and shields, with each knight requiring several sets of equipment. All of this equipment was made in distant Western Europe and had to be shipped through Italian merchants, making it even more expensive. Furthermore, each knight had several attendants, including horsemen and foot soldiers, all of whom were supported by the knights. As you can imagine, the costs of supporting a knight were astronomical, but with such powerful equipment, the knights had exceptional combat abilities. They were like modern special forces. So where did all the money come from? Initially, it was donations from the knights themselves. As they gained fame for their victories and courage, Western Europeans began donating heavily to them, including land, buildings, and cash. Soon donations exceeded their expenses, and the Templars started investing. They even set up a financial management department and became full-fledged financiers. They also offered loans to kings, lords, and even their enemies. As the saying goes, the customer is always right, and even enemies became clients. This made their original mission of eliminating Muslims ineffective. Of course, when it came to battle, these knights were still incredibly brave. Compared to the Knights Templar, the other two orders were more like landowners, agricultural magnates, and merchants. They profited from managing estates, farmland, and trade, but they didn't make as much as the Templars did through finance. Their fates were also different. The Knights Templar, founded in 1119, were destroyed by King Philip IV of France in 1312. Having lasted less than 200 years. Philip IV was the Templars' largest debtor. On the one hand, he wanted to avoid paying, and on the other, he coveted their vast wealth. However, the other two orders were luckier. The Knights Hospitaller still exist today, although they no longer fight. The Teutonic Knights, despite many challenges, still survive. They established the state of Prussia, and the Kingdom of Prussia later developed from the Teutonic Order. Eventually, the Teutonic Knights were conquered by Lithuania, and later dissolved by Napoleon. They reformed and became a purely charitable institution, which continues to this day. In conclusion, these three knight orders had a significant impact on medieval military, culture, and economy. They are undoubtedly representatives of the medieval period. If you enjoy ALLCHOICE Legends and Tales, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, and see you next time.